right. Good morning, Julia. How are you today?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear a
Oh,
recording came on.
so sorry.
No,
Good
you're fine.
morning. How are you
Good
today?
morning. I'm great, thank you.
All right. So Julia, we've been chatting a little bit. We already talked about the job. We talked about some of your experience, and now we have the opportunity to actually meet um, here and record a little clip of your experience. So I'm going to go ahead and give you the floor. Why don't you tell me about the type of work that you've been doing most recently, please?
Yes. One, I've been in property management since 2017. I enjoy working with the general public. My last position, I was the assistant property manager. I did all the leases, the applications. It was a tech property. They did have Section 8 vouchers that came in, so I had to deal with those. I scheduled maintenance. I took tenant complaints on things that were wrong in their apartment so we could get that rectified. I have, of course, the banking. I collected the rent. I called for collections to try to, get people caught up with their rent. I also did evictions. I had to process the evictions through the attorney. So I've done that also.
Okay, great. Can you talk to me a little bit about your experience with HUD regulations and how you ensured compliance?
Like every property that I worked for, you want to make sure everything is in order. Everybody has to be in compliance. I did work with a third party compliance company, which was preferred compliance. So when anybody would come in with an application or they did a recertification every year, I had to make sure all their paperwork was in order. We would forward it to the compliance company. We had to make sure their banking information was correct, their income was correct, and being in a live tech property, you had to fall between certain amount of income or you were not approved. If you fell below it, you were not approved. If you fell above it, you were not approved. So we may had to make sure that everybody was in compliance, especially with their leases.
Okay. And now, were you ever working with a wait list when you were doing that for people that
Yes,
wanted to
ma'am.
live?
We
Okay.
yes, we had a wait list. We would go through it in order. We do not pick and choose. We go from from the first person that's on the list and call them. If we did not hear from them, the company would say after 3 or 4 days of not hearing from them, we need to go to the next one because you do want your occupancy rate to be at almost at 100%. So I would call and try to get those people approved. Brief over the phone, they would tell me their income and whatnot. And I don't judge over the phone because you just never know. They might have their calculations wrong. So I would have them come into the office, meet with them, take their documents, and then I would do my calculations to see where they would fall into that category. And 9 times out of 10, yes, they were wrong and they were able to get approved to move in. It's just trying to get all the documentation. You tell them what you need, and some of the people they don't give you what you need, so I can't move forward with their application. And I explain that it's got to be in compliance. This is what we need. This is fair housing. This is what they're requiring, and this is what needs to be done. If I cannot get these documents, then unfortunately I cannot move with your application. So it's very important you give me everything that is needed to move forward with your application.
Okay,
We do
great.
not
Well,
pick and choose applicants at all. It's diversity.
sure.
We don't even go into that saying, all right, who's this race or that race? It has nothing to do with it. It's your qualifying that counts.
Okay. And then that's going to lead me to my next question, actually. Um, so how would you handle difficult interactions with someone? So let's say someone was upset about the like limitation on the policy. It's like they were upset maybe that they made too much or they weren't qualified or something, and then they were upset about it. How do you handle
Yes.
that?
I've had that happen many a times. and they'll scream and yell. And I try to explain to that applicant what type of property they're moving into. Tech property. This is government. This is the rules and regulations. I would give them a sheet that we had that says how you can apply and what you need to make or not make over the amount or under the amount. It's got to be in this, you know, range. I said, I do not, try to explain to them because a lot of the times they think you're making up the rules. I said, ma'am, I do not make the rules for this. And then I give them documents to show that this is what they need and this is what they have to make this amount between this and this. And so they're like understanding, but they're not happy. And I try to, if it's low income, I try to refer them to someone that will be able to help them. So that's what I try to do. I mean, I go above and beyond and I try to figure out, okay, what low income property that's local that they want to be in the area, and I'll refer them because unfortunately they don't qualify for our property.
Okay. In your past experience, have you ever had an opportunity to improve a process or a workflow?
Yes, ma'am. Sometimes, you always go by policy, and I'm a policy person. If they're telling me how to do something, I'm going to do it. If I have a suggestion on how to make something easier and you're still in compliance, I'll talk to management about it. Say, hey, listen, what happens if we try it this way? They could go for it or they could say, no, we have to do this. But 9 times out of 10, you're following the policy. I don't deter from that unless they say, hey, if you know an easier way, yeah, like I'll suggest on this program, why can't we use this part of the program to put people in compliance instead of having them fill out this paperwork. At the end of the one lease that I was dealing with had the some policies in the back that they signed, and they were double signing a lot of things.
Hmm.
So that's at that point, I was like, okay, it's in the lease, it's towards the back of the lease. You have all these added, like the homeowners form that was signed. Everything was in the back of the lease. And I'm like, all right, they're signing it on the lease. Why are we making them fill out a paperwork to sign the same document? So at that point, they're like, okay, you know what, you're right. People didn't realize it
Mhm.
was in the lease. Me, I like to go through the lease so I know what I'm dealing with. So we
Okay.
were not, yeah, we were like, yeah, okay. Don't have them re-sign that. It's already signed in the lease, so they're good to go. Because
Well,
I
that makes
noticed
sense.
that they were like double signing things, and it's
Yeah.
like you're wasting one paper, you're wasting that person's time, and they're like, "Wait, I signed this already," and I
Mhm.
caught on. I was like, "Wait a minute, let me look into that." So I went to the back of the lease, and all the documents that we needed them to sign were all in the back. So I'm like, "Okay," so that saved time
Sure.
for that person and myself instead of sitting there and having to sign something over and over again.
Well, good catch. Good catch there. Okay, so my last question, we were talking a little bit about certifications, and
Yeah,
I was explaining to you for this particular position that you would need to, take an exam, and you'd have to pass that exam within a certain time frame of
yeah,
working. Now, you mentioned that you did you have your certificate for fair housing. Was that
yeah.
something you had to take an exam for?
Yes, I had to take a test for that
Okay,
because everybody had to know about fair housing and you had to be in compliance to them.
sure.
And it's like all questions about, for race, people with different backgrounds.
Mhm.
It was a lot. There
Mhm.
was a lot of questions. So I had taken that exam and I got a certificate saying that I passed the fair housing regulation and exam or whatnot.
Okay.
I don't have that with me. I have no idea where that is, but I did take it and I do not have a problem taking anything like that again.
Okay, great. And how do you study for tests or exams?
Well, I have a lot of experience background, and so I play that, like, for instance, I thought about getting my real estate license, not to be a realtor, but just to have that background because you could get a better pay working as a property manager or whatnot. So I thought about that, and I actually went online and took one of their little dummy tests that they have that you could do, and I got an 84%. So there was a the section with the commercial properties I wasn't really familiar with. I've only done it a year. So I just go over from what I know on a daily basis and I implement that into learning. And I'm like, okay, if it's something that I do not understand, I will read up on it. And that's one thing is whatever company I work for, I do read into, things that they show me what to do. Just like I said, fair housing, I'm constantly on their website to get more information because there's a lot of information. And I'm sure some people don't know certain things that are in there. So
Yeah.
even like to raise rent, what the percentage is on a senior, they only could go up to so many percents
Mhm.
to have their rent increased. And people were like going above and beyond. I'm like, wait, why is this woman getting an increase in that? So I read up on that. I read up on the senior citizen part to get more information on how they get their rent increase and whatnot. So I just do a lot of reading and I try
Okay.
to, study that. And I take
Well,
a lot of notes.
yeah,
Even when I'm on a job, when I first start, I'll have a notepad and take notes because everybody does things differently and you learn different. So when I go into a position, I go in with an open mind and forget about my past positions because everybody does things different.
sure. Okay. Well, I think that you've answered the questions great. I mean, you proved, that you've got the analytical thinking, that you can learn well, that you can collaborate with the team, that you've got definitely the knowledge, some problem solving skills and attention to detail. So, and those are all the things that I'm looking for this particular role. So, oh, and the conflict resolution, with
Everybody
potential risk.
knows being in property management,
Yeah.
you get your irate tenants. The
Yeah.
only thing is, you got to give them respect, whether they're in low income housing or not. I'm not better than them. I don't look below them. And I like to talk to them about their issues that they are having. And
Mhm.
if I, of course, can't come to a resolution, I go management, hey, I need some help here. But you want to give them respect. They're
Sure.
not in that position because they want to be. They're in that position because unfortunately that's where they are. So I
Mhm.
treat them equally. I don't
Sure.
look at them any different than what I am.
Absolutely. Well, and of course, empathy in that type of position, actually a lot of positions that I staff for is really important because
Yeah.
it's funny. I was reading an article not that long ago about how most people are, 1 to 2 paychecks away from not having a home. And,
It's
that's a
bad.
scary thing to have. And I think when we start thinking about it in that way, it does change your perspective a little.
Yeah, I actually dealt with the Daytona Fair Housing, and actually I dealt with all the housing authorities. I had a veteran that came in with a voucher, and this poor guy prior to me, 2 months was trying to get an apartment. They
Mhm.
just dropped the ball on that. So when I
Mhm.
came into the position, I noticed this application. I'm like, this has been going on for 2 months. Well, the gentleman called me, called the office. I said, "Sir, I'm new here. Let me go through your file. Let me see what needs to be done. Because somewhere along the line, someone didn't process certain things that I noticed. And I do apologize for that. And I don't want to apologize because it wasn't me, but you do want to give them a little bit of, I'm so sorry that had taken place. But within 2 weeks, I got him moved in. There was
That's
some
great.
documents that were missing. The prior manager just left the folder on his desk, didn't do anything. I had to do so much on that. And I got to focus on this gentleman because this man is living in his car. It was
Yeah,
sad. And I
sure.
see it every day,
Mm,
You just
absolutely.
want to help these people.
Yeah.
You know, like I seen a gentleman on the street, a homeless veteran holding a sign. I gave him a business card. I said, please call me. Let me see what I could do to help you to find housing. There are programs, because a lot of people are not understanding. There's programs out there to help them,
Sure.
and they just don't have the resources to go and do that. They don't know. So
Yeah.
you try to help people.
Of course. Well, Julia, it's been really nice to talk with you. So
Absolutely. And I do appreciate the opportunity.
yeah, absolutely. I'm going to go ahead and stop this part of the interview, but don't go anywhere. We've got a few more things to chat about.
Okay.